Nobody talks about the night you realizes you have to build your financial life all alone. Let me tell you about two decisions that looked identical on paper and produced completely different lives. Same city, same year, same salary. Two completely different bets. Marcus was a logistics coordinator earning $55,000 a year. Smart, disciplined, not reckless. When he looked at his bank account and decided he needed more, his answer was simple: work more. Sign up for every overtime shift. Stack the hours. Get paid.
Done.
His younger brother Darius, same household, same work ethic, made a different call. He started a small online business selling laminated study guides he'd been making for himself anyway. Nothing glamorous. Nobody was impressed. For the first 2 years, Marcus looked like the obvious winner. Better car, fatter savings account, family cookouts where he'd casually drop what he earned that month. Darius could barely cover his hosting fees. Here's the question this entire video is built around, and it's not as obvious as it sounds. When you trade your time for money, what are you actually building? Before we go further, if you're new here, this channel is about the financial decisions most people make on autopilot and never stop to examine. No income screenshots. No get-rich promises. Just the real math. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss what's coming. Now, back to Marcus and Darius. Marcus's overtime strategy worked exactly as advertised. Immediately, within 3 months, he'd added roughly $800 a month to his take-home. Real, consistent money. His supervisor started calling him reliable, and Marcus wore that word like a badge. Darius, meanwhile, had uploaded PDFs to a storefront that maybe 30 people had ever visited. He made $47 his first month, split across the hours he spent designing and formatting. That worked out to something embarrassing. He didn't do that math on purpose. Here's what nobody says out loud about starting a side hustle. The early phase is genuinely demoralizing. It's not like the YouTube videos with big Shopify dashboards. For most people, months 1 through 9 look like Darius, effort in, almost nothing out. Marcus's friends were blunt. Darius is wasting his time. His mother asked at Easter dinner when he was going to get serious. Even Darius started wondering if they were right. But Marcus had a quiet problem nobody was clocking yet. He was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that builds slowly, like interest on a debt you didn't sign up for. Here's the thing about overtime income. It feels like a raise. It's actually a loan. You borrow against your energy, your recovery, your time, and the bill comes due later. By month 8, Marcus was averaging 52 hours a week. His girlfriend had mentioned, carefully twice, that he'd missed her work event 3 weeks running. He brushed it off. He was building. He had a plan. And technically the plan was working. Savings growing. He was quietly talking about buying a house in 2 years. But something subtle was shifting. The overtime stopped feeling extra. It became expected by his employer, by his budget, and by the version of himself he'd started showing the world. The lifestyle that grew around that income wasn't optional anymore. The car payment, the nicer apartment, the takeout every night because he was too wrecked to cook. Every upgrade swallowed the gap he'd worked so hard to open. Economists call this lifestyle inflation. It's not a personal failure, it's almost automatic. Income rises, spending finds a way to meet it. Meanwhile, Darius had a small, strange moment. A teacher in Ohio bought one of his guides and mentioned it in a homeschooling Facebook group. 43 people clicked through. He made $210 in 4 days, from work he'd finished weeks earlier. He almost missed it. He was at his day job. The money just appeared. That was the first time he felt it, that quiet, weird thing that people who build income assets almost never explain well. Being paid for work you already finished. I want to be honest here because most side hustle content skips this part entirely. Darius failed. Multiple times. Not dramatically. In the quiet, grinding way that makes you question your own judgment. He expanded into science resources for middle schoolers. 6 weeks of work. Made $18. Abandoned it. He ran ads. Lost $340 in 3 weeks. 3 sales. Math didn't work. He built a course. Nobody bought it. He started a newsletter that hit 200 subscribers and then flatlined for 4 straight months. There was a Tuesday night in February, he doesn't bring this up often, where he genuinely drafted a post to a small following saying he was shutting it all down. Tab open. Cursor on publish. He didn't post it. Not because something miraculous happened. He just closed the laptop and went to bed. The next morning, there was an email from a school district administrator in Georgia asking about bulk licensing for his original guides. Not a fortune, but enough to see something clearly for the first time. The stuff that worked actually worked quietly, without him watching it. This is where the story stops being about hustle and starts being about something more important. Compounding isn't just a financial concept. It's a structural one. Marcus's income was perfectly linear. Every dollar required a specific number of hours. Worked 10 overtime hours, made X. Worked 0, made 0. His ceiling was always exactly how many hours he had left to give. Darius's income, slowly, imperfectly, inconsistently, was becoming nonlinear. He released a new resource bundle in March. By July, it was still selling because a YouTube educator had mentioned it in a video Darius didn't even know existed. He hadn't touched that product since April. This is the concept that gets lost in almost every overtime versus side hustle conversation. It's not about how hard you work. Both brothers worked hard. It's about what structure your work creates. Marcus's work created cash. Clean and immediate. Darius's work created an asset. Messy and uncertain, but an asset. Something that could generate income without him in the room. By end of year 3, Darius's side income had hit $1,400 a month. Marcus was still ahead overall, but the trajectory had flipped. And here's the question I want you to drop in the comments right now. At what point does a slow-growing asset become more valuable than income that requires your physical presence to exist? Year 5? Year 10? Never? I read every comment. I'll share what I think after the next section. Year 5. Darius's educational resource business was generating $4,200 a month in passive and semi-passive income. 3 product lines. A small email list. A licensing deal with a curriculum company he'd cold emailed 9 months earlier and forgotten about. Marcus got a promotion. And I want to be clear, that promotion was real and earned. Marcus was excellent at his job. His employer valued him. The raise was significant. But here's what it didn't change. Marcus still had to show up. Every single day. The income was entirely dependent on his presence, his health, and the continued goodwill of one specific company. That's not a knock on Marcus. That's just what employment income is. It's personal. It doesn't exist without you. Darius's business had started to exist without him, partially imperfectly, but genuinely. Here's the comparison nobody makes. Marcus was building a career. Darius was building a business. Careers are valuable, genuinely, but they have a ceiling defined by hours in a day and years in a body. Businesses, even small, messy ones, can be sold, licensed, inherited, or automated. They can outlive the physical capacity of the person who built them. Let's fast forward honestly, not to a fantasy, but to the most realistic version of how these two paths land. At 40, Marcus has a solid retirement account, a mortgage, a title he worked for. He's also quietly exhausted. He hasn't taken a real vacation in 3 years because the professional cost feels too high. Darius's business now generates more than his day job salary. He still has the day job, but he's not dependent on it. That distinction, dependence versus choice, turns out to matter more than any income number. At 50, Marcus is facing something millions of experienced employees eventually face: a reorganization, new leadership, the slow anxiety that his salary may be higher than the company thinks he's worth. Darius sold 40% of his business to a small education company for a lump sum that changed his family's trajectory. He kept 60%. He still earns from it every month. At 60, Marcus's retirement is solid but conditional. It depends on market performance, continued health, a company pension, and a plan with no flexibility baked in. Darius's retirement is diversified in a way that can't be laid off, can't be reorganized, and doesn't require any single condition to be true. The most important metric was never income. It was optionality, the ability to choose, the ability to say no, the ability to make decisions based on what you want, not what you're required to do. Marcus built a life. Darius built a platform for choices. Neither of them had it figured out. Both of them paid a price. Both sacrificed something real. Here's the honest takeaway. Marcus wasn't wrong. Overtime can be exactly the right move. It can fund the early stages of something bigger. It can stabilize a hard season. There are moments in life where trading hours for money is the smartest call available to you. But if overtime becomes the strategy, if it becomes the permanent answer to the permanent question of how to earn more, you're not building toward freedom. You're building a dependency that will eventually be limited by your hours, your health, and someone else's decisions about your future. The question that separates people who build lasting wealth from people who just earn money is never how hard are you working. It's, what does your work create that survives the work itself? So here's what I'll leave you with, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. If you had 15 extra hours every week, would you spend them earning more money right now, or building something that might still pay you a decade from now? There's no wrong answer. But how you answer it reveals exactly where you are and how you think about money. If this made you think differently about anything, subscribe. Every week on this channel, I break down the financial decisions most people make on autopilot and never examine. No fluff, no fake dashboards. Just the real math behind the choices that quietly shape your financial life for decades. I'll see you in the next one.